We will look at what sustainable development is. Sustainable development is all about doing what we need to do now while leaving space for others to do what they will have to do in the future. So if we go by the Bruton Commission, that is the official name is World Commission on Environment and Development's definition, that is sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. Now, since we are talking about this in a Sri Lankan context, I would like to mention that in Sri Lanka, of course, sustainability is not a novel idea. That is, in Sri Lanka, always we have had this idea at the core of our values. Like, if you have seen, if you have maybe visited these stores, you might have seen a sort of lime pickle. So that is a traditional food in Sri Lanka, because in Sri Lanka there is a season where we get so much land that we can possibly consume them. But then there's again a time where in some areas you don't even get to see a lime. So what we do is that we preserve them for future. We don't use them all at once. So similarly, there are so many other examples I can take from Sri Lanka, but I won't bore you with that. So I just want to again emphasize the fact that sustainability as a concept has always been in Sri Lanka, maybe not under this name. We have known it in any other various names, but it has always been in Sri Lanka. So there are 17 sustainable development goals, and since you all have all been through the presentation of my colleagues, I don't think there's a need for me to emphasize them. So for the purpose of today's presentation, we have divided these development goals into 5 clusters. So I know that just like fundamental rights, these are connected to each other. Possibly you can't divide them. One can't exist without the other. But because this has to be covered within the limitation of time, and it should be kind of easy for you to understand and comprehensive, the first cluster includes about what that you interact on a day-to-day basis. These are the goals you need as a person or a human being living in Sri Lanka. So the second cluster is all about inequality and how to overcome it using these goals. And the third cluster is about economy, fourth being about environment, and the third about the state policies and the international cooperation thereof. So I don't think any of the first row people have seen a constitution of Sri Lanka. Okay, so we do have a constitution. Yeah, that is we call it the Second Republican Constitution, was introduced in 1978. And this is the 4th chapter of that constitution. And this chapter is particularly on how the state should conduct its duties and what are the duties of the citizen himself or herself. So these have always been the base of sustainable development and all the projects implemented by government on that context. So, uh, bring back again to them, and I hope you don't find that very tiring. And with that, I will hand over to my colleague Sufi.
Thank you, Pranidhi. Before I go into our presentation, I like to show the one video. Okay, sorry for that. That's not at this time. I'm going to the in poverty. This is one of the sustainable development goals which is implemented by the United Nations. So you know that what is the poverty? There is a no specific definition in for poverty. However, a basic definition, it is a condition where people basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter are not met. Another definition is you can show the screen. Poverty is often defined in absolute terms of low income, less than $2 per day. For example, but poverty is the more than low income. It is a relative. Dollar equal to Sri Lanka rupees 152 rupees. So directly I'm going to that the targets of sustainable development goals. By 2013, eradicate extreme poverty for all people everywhere currently measured as people living on less than $1.25 a day. Especially if you take Sri Lanka and the world, eradicating poverty in all its forms remains one of the greatest challenges facing humanity, while the number of people living in extreme poverty dropped by more than half. Poverty in Sri Lanka continues to be a large problem. Sri Lanka being an exceptional country with its the life expectancy, literacy rate, and other social indicators nearly on par with those developed countries, and even topping the rankings for the South Asia region. And also in Sri Lanka, 6.7 of the population lives below the national poverty line. There are so many projects and plans implemented by the Sri Lankan government. If we take one, the Ministry of Social Empowerment and Welfare, they are doing some duties for the, especially based on the poor people. And also, main objective of the Jana Savya, it was implemented during the 93. 1993, and also program established in 89 is to provide loan facilities to the poor family. It was help to other poor family, and also a scheme of pension for self-employed individuals since 96. An objective of the department and Divinagma it also established for the poverty eradication. Another topic I'm going to that zero hunger. Sri Lanka ranked 87 among developing countries in the global hunger index, indicating the country had some levels of poverty and malnutrition to combat. The index which took into account 118 developing countries ranked their Sri Lanka neighbors in lower ranks. Provision of adequate for clothing and leisure to achieve adequate standard of living in policy standard also based there's a constitution provision also article 27 of the Sri Lankan constitution under section C is based on this one. If we look at that, The realization by all citizens of an adequate standard of living for themselves and their families, including adequate food, clothing, and housing. The continuous improvement of living conditions of the full employment and leisure and social and cultural opportunities. So there are so many goals there. Okay, Kishore with goals.
Uh, Good afternoon, viewers. I think this is a sleepy time. uh, First, I apologize for that. Uh, Third goal of the Sustainable Development Goals. You know that good health and well-being. So, first, I want to introduce about what do you mean by good health? Is it only health is a physical one, or so, what are the components of health? Sorry, health. So only you mean only
Having good health is as well as having physical health, having good like mental well-being and social well-being.
I suppose, but our primary definitions who are United Nations define health as complete physical, mental, and social well-being. Okay. So if you do not consider that health is only physical, mental be considered. So in the good health leads to well-being. So well-being is a comfort and happy social life. So you know that. Uh, there are a lot of sub goals. There are a lot of sub goals which were mentioned in this third goal. By 2030, it is aimed at maternal mortality should be achieved in that 70 per 100,000 live births. And also, the second goal is the same year. Uh, you know that there's a newborn's baby's death. So it is also aimed at to reduce under children who are under 5 years of age, consider to reduce their death by developing the health services. And by 2030, so in the same, you know that the destination of the sustainable development goal is 2030. It is the SDG, Sustainable Development Goal, continuity of Millennium Development Goals. So, because of the some defects in the Millennium Development Goals, they have extended Sustainable Development Goal with few developments. So there are some diseases which are very dangerous in the world level. If we say like AIDS, and you have known about that some diseases, SARS, and the malaria is also malaria has been prevented completely in Sri Lanka, but now we have faced dengue problem in Sri Lankan context. But the Sustainable Development Goals says that these kind of diseases should be eradicated or prevented by suitable health services. And also, the another trend in the world is the prevalence of non-communicable diseases. You know that what are the non-communicable diseases? Diabetes, such like. Uh, there is a increasing trend in the world on non-communicable diseases. So the concerning to reduce non-communicable diseases also another goal of that, another sub goal of the, and also the another one is the narcotic drugs and the harmful use of alcohol. This is a threat to the world. You have heard of, you have read about some news. So you have viewed some news in, for the example, in Indonesia. You know that there is a um, there's a president who is very terrible or very horror to destroy this narcotic drugs from his country, because Indonesia is very famous, I think, very famous for smuggling narcotic drugs. So there are no way to prevent, destroy. So that president has decided some bad things to eradicate. And in 2000, another important thing is road accident. Road accident maybe because of our station, or that we can't predict road accident. And also the road accident also one of the reason which causes a number of death in the world level. So to reduce the reduce the extent of road accident through proper mechanism, also another sub goal of that third goal. And you know that in developing countries there are less knowledge in family planning and sexual reproductive health. So to develop this stage, the third goal says that we have to include some mechanism in education, because there is a controversial debate regarding the sexual education. So through proper mechanism in education and to the awareness to the society, we can make some action to prevent these kind of and another one is most in many countries the people face lack of healthcare service. As Sri Lankan, we are lucky people because we have free health services. But you know that in Africa, a lot of people who don't have the access of free healthcare services, so they are in a vulnerable situation. So this third goal includes this recommendation also. And in the worldwide, we use a number of dangerous chemicals and hazardous chemicals. They are the pollutants on air, water, and land. So to reduce these kind of pollutants, there are many convention and agreement in the world level, but they are not properly followed. They are only verbal. They are only written form. We do not use practically those agreement and conventions. So the sustainable development goals include this sub-goal also to consider. Okay, I couldn't. We are out of time, so I I have to mention some futures in Sri Lanka. In 2015, you know that the maternal mortality rate in Sri Lanka is 30 for 100,000 birth, and also infant mortality rate is 10 to 1,000 live births, and death. I have mentioned already that the road accident also one of the reason for death. Deaths in Sri Lanka due to the road accident is um, 2,801 and 2,590 fatal accidents were occurred in Sri Lanka in 2015. And the sixth goal of the sustainable development idea, uh, clean water and sanitation. When we talk about the clean water and sanitation, there are a lot of challenges to achieve this goal. The first one, rapid urbanization. You know that what is urbanization? Urbanization is a huge migration of the people towards areas from village areas uh, for some purpose, uh, maybe employment and to achieve to fulfill some services. So the urbanization is also one of the reason for water pollution, and this is this effect this effect to this urbanization may is the one of the reason for you have seen in Colombo also there are some unplanned sewerages. They are not treated. They are they directly flow to sea. So you can see the extent of pollution in the sea. And also the second challenge is scarcity of water and pollution. Scarcity of water and pollution is because of the scarcity. We can see a scarcity in the last 3 or 4 months in Sri Lanka because of the climate change. 6 provinces were severely affected to the scarcity of water because of the drought. So uh, this is also one of the reasons for that human elephant conflict, because animals come to the village for the drinking water. And the next challenge is financial stability. As a developing country, we face financial stability to obtain clean water and sanitation. Sometimes we have high level growth in economic, and also sometimes we have low level growth in economic. So we couldn't achieve, we have some obstacle to achieve this goal. The current situation in Sri Lanka regarding the clean water and sanitation, the consumption of safe water is 85%. You know that Sri Lanka is a few different countries. There are a lot of tourists, they come to visit. There are a lot of springs and water resources. So we have the accessible of 85% of safe water in Sri Lanka. And the second one is developed sanitation is 90%. For example, if we say some districts, the very poor district, Monaragala and also Mullaitivu, Mannar, these districts faces lack of sanitation facilities, especially latrine facilities. People use some natural places and jungles to fulfill these kind of needs. And third one is the combination of state and local service provision is positive in Sri Lanka. If we take central government and also local government, the combination is effective because the local government such as Pradesh Sabhas, municipal councils, urban council, they work together with central government and they work under the central government to fulfill this kind of necessities. And the fourth one is service provision not being commercialized. In Sri Lanka, the service provision of this sanitation and clean water is not commercial, not profitable because in the drought situation, Pradesh Sabhas and divisional secretariat are responsible government bodies to fulfill need related to water of the people. And the fifth one is most service providers are in Sri Lanka in financially stable because um, the local authorities such as I mentioned earlier that Pradesh Sabhas municipal councils they run with their own financial support and also from the support of central government. So they have the ability to provide these kind of needs, to fulfill these kind of needs for people. In the next one is in 2008, the Sri Lankan government implemented the training policy. It is a positive performance, positive action of the Sri Lankan government because the clean drinking water project was initiated in Malawachia of Northern Central Province by President to provide clean to all type of people, all category of people, without the fires on rich or poor. And we have some suggestion. We have some suggestion to improve this goal. First one is the doubling water supply because in Sri Lanka is not adequate to fulfill the whole population's need. So we have to double the current water supply through some government bodies such as water board and irrigation department. And the second one is the considerable improvement on sanitation because as I mentioned earlier, some district still face sanitation problem. So there's a need for improvement of sanitation in such kind of districts. And third, increasing investment for water and sanitation because the investment and the financial allocation for water and sanitation is very less compared to other sectors because we know that the financial allocation for defense is high than this sector. So, because of the time period, I want to conclude with the issues of, you can see the slides about the chronic drain and failure of Sri Lanka because of the water pollution. And I want to conclude this presentation and I welcome Amberasi to present.
Good evening, friends. I think you have been up to a serious discussion so far. For a change, can you imagine a situation like this? Stepping into a home. Maybe someone you know, or else us. In the hall, TV would be running at its higher volume, the fan would be running, or the lights would be turned on, but anyone not there. Have you all come across a situation like this? Almost in each and every home of Sri Lanka. I don't know whether it happens out of Sri Lanka also. Shall we continue to do like this? We have to come out of this kind of irresponsible energy consumption pattern. Yes, our next goal is affordable clean energy. Sri Lanka has come up with a national energy policy in order to achieve energy self-sufficiency by 2030. Sorry if I am disappointing you. We have made this presentation considering Sri Lankan youth. In Sri Lanka has some challenges in achieving this national energy policy by 2030. Those are expenditure for electricity. We mainly depend on hydropower and coal power. So we expend so much to that. So we have to come out of that. Then the transport sector predominantly depends on petroleum. We import all this petroleum. So that's also a challenge for us. Then the next one, the research and development is low regarding our Sri Lankan country. We have to spend so much on infrastructure development for the energy sector. And the next challenge is unsustainable consumption pattern, but I have referred earlier. The next one is energy wastage losses. Then this table, we have some targets to achieve by 2030. We have mentioned some of them because of the time limitation. First one is achieving energy self-sufficiency by 2030. By 2020, we are going to generate 20% electricity from renewable energy resources. And by 2030, we are going to increase it to 30%. And we are focusing on the reduction of the cost of energy importation. And the next one is we are in the context of establishing green villages in Indurana and Daluvalana in Sri Lanka. And we have a battle for solar energy because of its higher initial cost. And there are some laws prevailing in Sri Lanka regarding this energy crisis. I think Praniti would address on those laws.
So actually, since we made this more or less targeting the Sri Lankan youth, I think these are just figures and facts for you. But then Sri Lanka has been quite positive and active in this front. And this Act number 1985 from itself, it states that certain punishments and things that you could get if you are especially in the industrial sector, and if you do not adhere to the like at the time there was not sustainability concept as in that, but if you were meddling with others fulfilling necessities, especially if you are an industrialist, there were those. And then we have a sustainable energy authority, and then there's the Electricity Act, which also constrains to make sure that there is sustainability, and then there's Atomic Energy Act, and we do that to the next one.
Next goal is responsible consumption and production. I don't think I have to explain what responsible consumption and what responsible production are, because you have been up to that international presentation. I don't think I have to explain what these mean. And I'm going to address the problems Sri Lanka faces regarding this goal.
Hunger level of Sri Lanka is categorized under the serious status. That means we have to focus on eradicating hunger because it's about 25.5%. So, and another important point is 23% of Sri Lankan population is malnourished. And another important thing is 33% of Sri Lankan population cannot afford nutritious diet. That's all what I have to say here. It's over to you, Pranidhi.
So as we all know that Sri Lanka has made its mark in the world through its cricket, for one thing. And we are also known for appointing or electing the first woman prime minister of the world. And then also we had a woman president as well, a very powerful one. But still gender equality is not a big favorite of Sri Lanka. If we refer to the stats, because these targets we can read online, of course, the average literacy level in Sri Lanka is 93.3, which is quite high for a South Asian country, and it is the highest. Yes. What it is among women, and at least who must be monitoring? Is it men or women? Who do you think? Men. Men? No other answers. Just you think men. Men. You think men? Yes, of course. You two are correct. Because in Sri Lanka, the literacy rate among women is 94.2%, while it is only 94.2% in women and 92.6% in men. So it's 1.6% they are like that. And of course, if you walk into any government university of Sri Lanka where you are selected on the merit basis only, you will see about three women, one man. Lanka, illiteracy is not a problem in this regard. So, women are more educated than men. And of course, if you take any competitive exam or any profession, of course, there are more women than men. But the problem is in the way we view women and men in Sri Lankan society. Regardless of how we have elected Prime Minister of the world some 40 years back, and again another woman president who led us for 10 years, we are still not looking at our women colleagues in the same manner as we look at our male colleagues. We think that our male colleagues are more capable than our women colleagues, which is not true. But then it has not been taken as a core value. But the respect for women is there, but they are not viewed as the equal. So this is a problem when it comes to the vulnerable communities of the country, especially. So in Constitution, it specifically says in Article 12.2 that you can't be discriminated because you are a man or a woman. And of course, no man is discriminated just because he's a man, and it's mostly women. So in the same article, in the fourth section, it says, just because the Constitution says that everyone is equal and men and women cannot be discriminated, if there is a special law which might benefit women, then you can't use this article of equality to stop that. So that the government stand or the core on which they operate is that though women and men are equal, for the betterment of women, you can implement projects, pass legislation, and so and so. And in the chapter I referred at the beginning of the presentation, the directive principles of state policy and fundamental duties, it clearly states that the government has the full responsibility of making it possible for all citizens that their fundamental rights can be realized. In 28, in the next sentence of the same chapter, it says that each citizen has a duty to respect the rights and freedoms of others. So this is a part which has not been cited or quoted very much in Sri Lankan context. That is, I don't think most of the people know that they have a fundamental duty to respect
women and consider them as their equals. So if you refer to a very recent Supreme Court judgment in Sri Lanka, where a certain teacher went to court and filed a Supreme Court petition, fundamental right petition in the Supreme Court against her being discriminated just because she was a woman. It was the stand of the that since Sri Lanka has these provisions and being a woman and being respected is much more important than implementation of any other law, that it should stand, that her right to not be discriminated should stand. So in judiciary and legislature that is there. So what we have to implement now is in the minds of the people. So for that, certain laws and policies have been implemented in Sri Lanka. So the Domestic Violence Act is a big part of our legislation in that manner. But the most important thing is quite recently, 25% of the local authority representation, that is the grassroots level of Sri Lanka's elected government, has been allocated to women. And it has been sought, the permission of the cabinet was sought very recently for 30% of nominations to go to female candidates and provincial councils and very recently also for the parliament. The next one is reduction of inequalities. So since my colleagues talked about poverty, I would like to draw your attention into two problems in this Sri Lanka faces in this sector. Sri Lanka has an aging population. Sri Lanka has never had a population where there are more old people than the labor force. But now, Sri Lankan of 8 Sri Lankans is either 60 years or above. And in 2041, it will be even worse. With 25% of Sri Lankan population will be old. And also, you can see a lot of disabled or differently able people in Sri Lanka. So for that, we have had the National Secretariat for Elderly, which exclusively caters to the elders. And if you are an elder and if you are not looked after by your children, you can claim alimony through this mechanism. And also, there's National Council for Persons with Disabilities, Protection of the Rights of Persons with Disabilities Act, National Policy on Disability for Sri Lanka, and also then the standardization of sign language braille used by differently able people has been accepted and standardized by the Ministry of Education and the higher education institutes of Sri Lanka, enabling them opportunities to learn further. So, in this context, Sri Lanka has been quite inclusive. So, what we see as a sustainable answer to these inequalities in either gender or just because of your physicality is quality education. So, Sri Lanka is known for its free education. From through your primary education to the day you leave school, you will be educated for free in Sri Lanka. And on the basis of merit, Sri Lanka admits students to its government universities for free. And you will be, of course, paid even to learn if you get scholars on the basis of merit or if you have a low income. So, education has always been played a key role in implementing sustainable development goals in Sri Lanka. And of course, if you read the new bill, proposed bill, again it emphasizes the importance of education in this manner. And then there has been, it has been said that in Sri Lanka, education is constrained to certain fields only, so that not all students can utilize their talents and skills. So, very recently, technology was introduced as a stream for in it. If you are more into technology, more into media, you can rather opt to study that instead of math, science, or arts. Also, we are in the process of developing the technological facilities available for our students in the school of universities, and the slogan of the current government is the closest school is the best school, and in that manner we are
aiming to make the each school the best school. And with that, I will hand over.
Thank you, Randy. So now all of us are a little bit tired, I feel. So some faces are tears like that. Anyway, now we have gone through more than 3 hours. Then I'm going to talk about goal number 8, which is given from the United Nations. It's decent work and economic growth. Promote inclusive, sustainable economic growth, employment, and decent work for all. For all. That is the goal they are going to be talked about by developing that goal. So, why? What could be the reason to have to implement this goal, like this goal? So, poverty eradication only possible through stable and well-paid jobs. You know that the nearly 2.2 billion people live below under the poverty line, and more than 204 million people are unemployed as 2000 in 2015. So, uh, be, being as being under the poverty line, it is simply because of their low income. See? So, to overcome this issue, in another way, the poverty eradication only possible if we have good, stable and well-paid job. Then that is the main reason to focusing about the this uh, goal as sustainable development goal, because of having poverty, earlier discussion also we heard that makes the other problems to the society. The less education coming, and and other well-being of the life is getting low. So, having implementing this goal for the sustainable development goal, uh, that means sustained per capita economic growth is according to the national circumstances, and in particular, 7% of the gross domestic product per annum in the least developed countries. So we know the in the world there are few categories in the according to the development, least development, developing countries and developed countries. Then these goals are implementing considering all these categories, and to have a better world. Then UN and UN is focusing to have a development GDP at least 7% for least developed countries, and higher level of economic productivity, getting to diversification and technology upgrading and innovations. Then promote development-oriented policies that support to have decent job creation, entrepreneurship, creativity and innovation, and encourages formalizing and growth of micro, small and medium enterprise like that. So, uh, then in Sri Lankan country, because I'm skipping these slides because there are several information, but the time is going rather fast, and because I like to consider pay your attention to Sri Lankan countries. In the goal of the eighth goal is having a good job, especially having a better job, well-paid job, because in Sri Lankan countries, most of the people are farmers. The people who are contributing to the GDP is highest part is foreign workers. Then
since even Sri Lanka is an agricultural country, the highest contribution for the GDP is from foreign employment. Out of that, uh, the highest part of that also from women who are going for Middle Eastern for household as house housemaids. So then even the Praniti said the accuracy, literacy is higher. Literacy is increasing above 90, but we couldn't have gained the technological and the other alternatives rather than for the GDP. So in Sri Lankan context, we have to consider that to develop our job satisfaction and have well-paid jobs, we have to consider that it is better. It have to implement to the country, and the factories should be increased, and then people will come to the those positions, and then they will be able to have well-paid jobs, as well as the in government context, people are coming. People have attraction to come into the government jobs because of the security is high and the especially pension scheme. So, but now the trend is turning back because paying well the salary is government in private sector. So now, therefore, people are now it's turning towards private sector, but still the attraction is heading to the government sector. Then the goal number 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure. Then the infrastructure, we know they're having reachability, road communication, internet reachability like that. Those are the main features of the infrastructure, and those are very good in urban areas, but there are some gap between urban and there are some least reachability for good infrastructure in rural area in Sri Lanka. So then I'm skipping these slides because of the time and the requirement is having a good infrastructure, the quality, reliable and sustainable and excellent infrastructure, giving opportunity to develop the country's requirement, because we know that now implemented two expressways and other road network also now has developed, as well as the digital divide is becoming low, because government has considered to implement free Wi-Fi zones in all over the country, and with some programs joining with the Google Balloons, or like something like that. So now we have considering these things to have a sustainability of the development of our country. So and the implementing and developing the factories and the industries in the small scale into the large scale, from small scale, medium scale and large scale, developing those industries, then because of that the infrastructure and other facilities will be implemented, then the people will come again, people's income will get high, and the productivity will be getting high. Then that would be help to have a better development for the country. So, as well as the not only in the physical development, doing scientific researches and about sustainable development, and how we can do these things, how we can implement these things in country according to the uh, culture as well as the physical environment. They have it is that another requirement to have a scientific researchers to develop these things. So then the domestic technology development, research and innovation in developing countries, including by ensuring a conducive policy environment for their for area industrial diversification and value addition to communities. Significantly increase access to inform and communication technology and strive to provide universal and affordable access to internet in these developed countries by 2020. So there is a good thing in Sri Lanka. Number of mobile connections is over the total population of Sri Lanka. So that is a good trend, I think. So because that means the reachability to the to the internet would be it is a good indicator to have, because many of us have smartphones now. Everyone using smartphones. Then many of us have even at least two phones. Even me. Then these things are focusing to the these things are indications to having a good infrastructure facilities, and still we are focusing to enhance these facilities to have a development. Then the legal framework in Sri Lanka to achieve these goals, I would like to talk about a little bit more. Then Chopin Office Employees Act number 19 of 1954. This act making the space to have a good environment for employees who are working in shops and officers. That means, especially this is a very good section is there. If a person, if an employee facing any that means any physical problem, if any injuries like that, then the act has covered their act has covered their rights. So this is therefore the employer have all. I am always considering these things, because the employer should be liable to, if that he has a responsibility to give suitability for the affected employee. Then the Employee Provident Fund Act number 15 of 1958. This is especially for pensionable jobs, the people who are doing non-pensionable jobs, especially in private sector. Then it is the employee contributes 3% from his salary, and employer contributes 8% from his salary, and government contribute another 4% according to his salary. Then the people, the employee will have a fund into his account. When he is going to leave from his job, then he can get total amount of that fund after 5 years. After 5 years, if he is going to leave from his job, then he can fund. So it is very good because he don't have a pension. Then it will be helpful to have his usage. Then the Workmen's Compensation Act number 19 of 1934. It is provide for the payment of compensation to workmen who are injured in the work for their employment. That one also covered like Chopin of it. So then the Wages Board Ordinance, Factories Ordinance, and the Industrial Disputes Act also covered the employees' rights and to have a satisfied job environment in his working place. So I would like to invite Sandamali to continue the session.
Good evening, friends. Thank you, Ravi. Good evening, friends. I hope you're all so tired, but still we have to make some few goals, no? How many goals have you done so far? You know? So it's now quite mixed. So I think what we focus here is to get a general idea, because sustainable development is, as in the Sri Lankan context, it is not a new concept, as Pranidhi said, because when we prepare rice, I mean, we put aside some part of it to have it laid, so that I mean later. What we meant is that we can cook some other meals like cow cookies. You might have heard those things. So we prepare several meals from one food. So we have this concept in our country from the earlier ages. So this concept, I need to take one example from. So when we consider saving money from the beginning of our childhood, our parents to save money. So sometimes we just don't consider that. But when the time goes, we think that if we start by some point to save money, so we continue it when we have a employment, I mean job. So it's become a habit. So I suggest that if we adhere to these goals, I mean as a concept, so we can continue it as a habit. So we can start it from like cover or throwing out plastic bottle out as in the road. So if we stop that habit, then we continue to love the environment and keep it safe. So we can have this concept in our lives. So is now climate change. So now recently we have a disaster. But not recently, in Sri Lanka, we got very damaged disaster. You know what it is? Yeah. So tsunami. I suggest that climate change is global warming, disasters like tsunami, greenhouse effects, and glacier melting.
those are all because of these climate change issues. And we get now mostly in Sri Lanka nowadays we get rain. We don't have usually these times we don't get rain, but now we get. And the landslides and earthquakes. Those are the things that happen because of this climate change. So, since we have to ask some questions, and we have present some. So I would like to ask you, from you, what is the environment? So can you guys give a small definition of environment? How do you feel about it? What is the components that environment consists of? I think my colleagues will support. It's living things, non-living things, natural and man-made things. So it is our surroundings. So in this context, so since we are running out of time, I think we should speak of Goal 14, conserve and sustainable use of the oceans, seas, and marine resources. So there are so many laws here in Sri Lanka, so I'd like to discuss them late. And Pranidhi, can you just keep with the slides? Yeah. So this video here, so you can enjoy it because you all feel like tired. It's Thank you. Goal 15 speaks of sustainably manage forests, combat desertification, halt and reverse land degradation, or biodiversity loss. So for this context, I think we could skip the slides and have the laws. So first, I have here pointed out the environmental concerns, deforestation, soil erosion, and in Sri Lanka, these are the most problem. Wildlife population threatened by poaching and urbanization and coastal degradation and freshwater resources being polluted and air pollution and there are, I have discussed it earlier, I think. Biodiversity, losing of biodiversity is also a main problem. So as you see now, 750 species of amphibians, birds, mammals, and reptiles are endemic, and plants also 26.9% are endemic. So, acts relating to the environmental law in Sri Lanka, which I hear mainly focused on environmental law because and discuss all those goals here. So, National Environment Act is our main focus. It is for the prevention and management and enhancement of the environment and the prevention, abatement, and controlling of the pollution. So, in the section 12 of this National Environmental Act, it states that this is CE, it's Central Environmental Authority, and it is empowered to issue written documents to any local authority, and then they can do any act necessary to safeguard the environment. So, and Section 24 of the Environmental Act says that no person shall deposit any, discharge any waste into inland waters. They can't pollute, and those acts are prohibited under this law. So, according to the Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, I would like to emphasize this also. It sets out prohibited activities pertaining to vertebrates and invertebrates. So, I would like to ask who are the vertebrates and invertebrates? Can you give me answer? Vertebrates?
Vertebrates have a spine.
Yeah. Animal who have backbone, and invertebrate means who doesn't have backbone. So I think you'll get a award for that answer. And so that when we violate this Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance, you will get fines and imprisonments for violation of this act, and these fines have been revised recently. So it contains provisions on the protected areas and elephants and vulnerable floras and vertebrates and invertebrates. So minister, under the relevant minister has power to declare protected areas like national reserves and sanctuaries and manage elephant reserves. So there's a in Fauna and Flora Protection Ordinance. It is called Informers Rewards Ordinance because public interest litigation. It's in Sri Lanka. It is accepted. It is allowed under this ordinance because member from public can report if any offence under this act happens. So if he's been the offender, then he will get the informer will get rewarded. So this, I think, kind of encouragement to the public to act against on the wildlife offences. So forest conservation ordinance also is something important. There are aspects that a minister has power to. There are slides, some slides there. Yeah, here. Forest conservation ordinance. it consolidates and amends the laws on conservation, protection, and sustainable management of forest resources. So, can you just keep? Yeah. Back. Minister has the power to declare reserve forest, conservation forest, and village forest. So, according to this, these forests have been safeguarded. So, there will be fine and imprisonment according to this act. Yeah, as I said, activities prohibited in conservation forests are examples are felling and damaging trees, and permitting cattle to trespass and cutting grass and plants to feed cattle, and blocking waterways and getting water through pipes, and we can't pollute water, and we can't dump garbage into environment, and killing, shooting, and removing animals is prohibited. So firing also prohibited. So things like that in this act. I think these are the special laws in Sri Lankan context. So, as I said earlier, village forest minister can declare by order published in Gazette any portion of a forest as a village forest for the benefit of any village community. So they can get together, but they can't cut down the trees listed in the schedule of the said act. The acts pointed out these acts which are not allowed: damaging trees, blocking waterways, polluting, poisoning, and clearing forest. Normally in Sri Lanka, clearing forest is a very dangerous thing. It's happening, but according to the act, it is prohibited. So setting fire also, and roads also, it's been happening, but still these have been fauna and flora protection. That's what I discussed earlier. No, we can. No, yeah. We also discussed this. So this, just back there, public interest litigation. Yeah, public interest litigation is context we identified in Sri Lanka. I mean, there are few cases, but I have depicted here one case: Environmental Foundation Limited versus Urban Development Authority. It's very famous as Court-based Green case, and in that case, Supreme Court gave an order to prevent the commercial exploitation of Court-based Green because petitioner sought from UDA lease agreement, which is UDA has signed with a private developer. So this after this judgment, it is known as the public has arrived. So doctrine of public trust has been articulated. So So these are the initiatives towards sustainable development in Sri Lanka. So we have established National Council for Sustainable Development and Sustainable Human Development Index and Harita Lanka program in 2009, and Strategy for Sustainable Development in 2009, and so I think you can see all of them. So since we are running out of time, goal 16 is, as Jasma also discussed this, promote just, peaceful and inclusive society. So according to this, we significantly reduce all forms of violence and relate birth rates everywhere. and abuse, exploitation, trafficking, and all forms of violence. So can we just move into other? Yeah, revitalize the global partnership for sustainable development. I would like to discuss on the issues relating to these goals. So I have depicted here. Next. Yeah, according to Article 28D and 28 of the Constitution, there's a fundamental duty imposed on every person in Sri Lanka by Article 28D, Chapter 6, to preserve and protect public property and to combat misuse and waste of public property. And Article 28 F says to protect nature and conserve its riches. So we also have the right of access to information. There is an act. We had 19th Amendment to the Constitution. So it inserted this 14A section. So now we have it as a fundamental right. So now we can ensure that goal. Now we have passed it. Goal 16. No? Right to Information Act number 12 of 2016, according to this preamble, it is with a view to foster a culture of transparency and accountability in public authorities, so they can give effect to the right of access to information and promote a society that people would participate fully. So Section 3 states that the country, every citizen shall have the right to access of information. So as we discussed earlier, National Sustainable Development Bill is in the second stage reading at the Parliament. So now we are in a moving, very big movement towards the National Sustainable Development context. Pranidhi. Yeah, as the first country in the Asia Pacific region to establish a Ministry of Sustainable Development, now we can move towards this goal, I think, and we are the objective of this proposed is to formulate a national policy on strategy on sustainable development and provide the legal framework. So, Act will mandate ministries and other institutions to provide for the sustainable development strategies and to provide for annual progress reports and show their progress. So these are the things that in Sri Lanka we are moving towards too. The ultimate goal of Sri Lanka is to create a model of implementing these SDGs in 3 phases. That is 2017 to 2020 and like so. Next. So I think we have come at the end. So achieving sustainable development is something that human beings, consumption is becoming higher. It is increased. So we can't do it within day or within a year. So it's a barrier to the concept of sustainable development. So have you anyone heard carbon footprint concept? Yeah, can you explain a little bit what that means?
Measure your carbon emissions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's image. It's the amount of carbon dioxide we we released into the atmosphere as individually and organizationally like that. So we have to reduce the carbon footprint. So for that, we need to reuse, recycle, and support the clean energy services. So that ultimate goal is to save the environment. So, so I think that gift. Thank you. So, long-term result of environmental degradation is the inability to sustain human life. So, this context is would lead to now we are not thinking of it, but this would lead to the extinction of humanity. So, if we want to live in the earth, so we have to protect it. So, it's the concept we need to focus on. So, I'd like to invite Pranidhi to summarize these things.
As I mentioned earlier when I started that sustainability is not a novel concept to Sri Lanka. It has always been, it will always be in our heritage. And what we need to do is know that we have legislature and mechanism in place to protect our rights for sustainability. So we would like to emphasize that knowing that law is there to protect you and there are measures available for you whenever that your right to sustainability or the chance you should have for sustainable development is being threatened is the important thing. Actually Sri Lanka is very, very positive and progressive in this thing, but the thing is that the public are not completely aware of these things and they do not reach out to that. So what we hope from this presentation was to educate the Sri Lankan youth about available paths for them to ensure this and to show them what measures are available for them, as again also to educate them about their duties as responsible citizens to enhance sustainable development. And with that, we would like to conclude and would like to invite any questions or comments from you, if you have. Yes.
So my question's related to job security being a sustainable development goal in Sri Lanka. It was mentioned on one of your slides that by 2020, operationalize and implement strategies to increase youth employability. And I was wondering if you could expand on some of those strategies. And I was also wondering, in terms of gender inequality, whether there's any particular strategies that are there, maybe particularly for females, to try and encourage them to get into the job sector.
Yes, there of course are policies to increase youth employment and also to reduce the disparity between men and women. So as for youth employment, we have now, in addition to our usual education system, we do have places where you could go to outside, that is like the NVQ, National Vocational Qualifications, where you could get qualified professionally for a respectable profession. So that is a step Sri Lanka has taken even before ratifying this. And even today, now I talked about introducing the technology stream to advanced level. That was a very good initiative because people could utilize their talent and their interest in fields which are not traditional. So these are the initiatives Sri Lanka government has taken in a macro level, but in a more lesser level, they have taken various strategies at the provincial and the local levels. And to speak about the gender inequality, yes, there are measures, especially there are special loan provisions and schemes to empower women entrepreneurs and to increase self-sufficiency, and also a special security program for women-headed households because they have been identified as a vulnerable community. So I hope that answered your question. Anything else?
What are some of the opportunities that you see to get Sri Lankan youth passionate and committed to these issues and involved in the process?
The problem is that Sri Lankan youth are not aware they have the opportunity, and secondly, they are not eager to take it even when it is there. So the opportunities that are available for them is that youth participation in political processes. One big thing, and then also on much grassroots levels, there are community-based projects where youth participation is specially sought out. So those are the two main things I see as useful in that regard. With that answer, so anything else or any other comment?
Is kind of sustainability something that's taught in schools? Because I know you said it's kind of inherent to Sri Lankan culture, but is it something that's actually kind of in the curriculum? Is it taught in schools about sustainable development and about global warming and all of these issues? Is it something that's on the curriculum?
Yeah, of course, it is part of our curriculum from, I think, grade 6, that is from your junior secondary school to the end of the secondary school. We do have a subject at our GCE called Social Studies and History, where it's a huge part of it, and also for health, we are taught part of this. But the thing is, we are taught for it to gain marks and pass exams. This is not very sustainable. So it's like, we know it by heart. But then we are a bit reluctant to put it into practice. We don't think of it as something that we should do on day-to-day basis. We don't see it as part of us. That is a problem because we are a generation which doesn't belong to the Sri Lankan core values. We don't really believe in them. We know that they are there. And also we don't really believe on the westernized ideas. So we are somewhere in between and a bit confused. So we don't believe neither of these and don't read the advantages of either of these. So yes, we do have those in our textbooks, but they are in textbooks and on our exam papers. Anything else? Thank you very much for your active participation and contribution. And we have a present for those two young ladies who said that Sri Lankan women are more literate than Sri Lankan men. Hoping that is not a discrimination. With that, we would like to conclude and thank you so much. And have a nice day.